Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. It seems as though Meghan and Harry will still or could possibly be plagued with financial troubles and woes. So I found this article today by The Express and it's regarding the upcoming presidential election. And what they actually highlighted in this article was that if Joe Biden does become president of the United States of America, Meghan and Harry's taxes could see a marked increase, which could affect their financial future, their financial prospects. We know that they have scored this extremely lucrative Netflix deal currently, but that money has to go into many pockets. They have to pay people to produce their documentaries for Netflix. They have to pay for their security. They have to pay for their staffing costs. They have to pay for personal assistants, nannies, and transportation. So you can see, and then they also have to pay their taxes, their capital gains tax. So you can see the way in which this money is going to go into a million different pockets, which leaves them with not a lot to really live on. We are also aware that they have a mortgage for $7.4 million, which I believe they would have taken out well after they knew that they had this Netflix deal on the table. So for them to take out a mortgage really does signify that Meghan and Harry are still worried about their finances and keeping costs and expenses low. They didn't clear it outright because they do not have the money outright. And allegedly, with Joe Biden possibly being the next president, their financial outlook could get worse. So I'm going to get into the article. Meghan Markle dilemma: Joe Biden could cause major difficulties for the Sussexes. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry may face an extra burden if Joe Biden is elected president in November, an increased tax burden. Currently in the US, long-term capital gains taxes, the tax levied on profits from the sale of a property or investment, are much lower than that on personal income. The top rate for long-term capital gains is 20%, while the top rate for personal income is nearly double that at 37%. But Mr. Biden wants to equalize these by raising capital gains tax. The Democratic nominee has proposed that the top rate of income tax should be raised from 37% to 39.6%, and the top rate for capital gains should rise from 20% to 39.6%. He teamed up with Senator Bernie Sanders earlier this year to form a task force that released a 110-page policy document of their plans. In the document, the task force said their plan is to use taxes as a tool to address extreme concentrations of income and wealth inequality. A guiding principle across our tax agenda is that the wealthiest Americans can shoulder more of the tax burden, including in particular by making investors pay the same tax rates as workers and bringing an end to expensive and unproductive tax loopholes. And I'm sure that this new policy would be right up the street of Meghan and Harry, since they are all for the common everyday man, it seems now. They seem to be wanting to cash in on the problems that the everyday poorer person does experience with their new Netflix deal. I personally see it as some kind of form of exploitation of other people's challenges in order to make themselves rich and live the life of Riley and live like the cat that has pretty much got all of the cream. So they should be happy about this. They shouldn't really have an issue with this, but we know that Meghan and Harry possibly will start complaining or wanting to jump ship if this ever takes place. So I'm going to carry on with the article. Meghan and Harry, having just signed a huge deal with Netflix estimated at $150 million, approximately £113 million. Like I said, everyone's quoting a completely different figure right now, and they're refusing to confirm exactly how much money they are being paid during this contract for the Netflix. So I don't think anyone specifically knows. is somewhere around that amount of money. So I'm going to carry on. And already possessing significant personal wealth will surely fit into the category of some of the wealthiest people in the United States. This change means that if, for example, Harry and Meghan's Montecito mansion goes up in price, or any stock or other asset they own goes up in price, they could be liable to pay far more tax in a Biden administration than a Trump administration. Nevertheless, it is believed that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are supporting Mr. Biden in the election. Given Meghan's previous comments about Donald Trump, the Duchess branded Mr. Trump misogynistic and divisive in 2016, and this year encouraged people, particularly women, to vote. She told her followers that if they choose not to vote, they are complicit. What's more, Prince Harry has a personal relationship with Mr. Biden because the former vice president and his wife Jill have been fervent supporters of the Invictus Games since its inception. So maybe they could, strike up a deal, a backhand deal possibly, like Meghan was trying to do with the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, when they was mooching and leeching off of the Canadian taxpayer out there last year. They could possibly strike up a backhand deal, but I don't think in the US it will work that way. And you guys do not have any royal figureheads as it stands, so I don't think it's going to work out the way they could possibly be planning it. So I'm going to carry on. Tax and immigration expert David Lesperance told express.co.uk that the current tax system vastly favours investors over those who earn a salary. He compared the income of Warren Buffett, American investor and business tycoon, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, and that of his assistant. He said, when they say Warren Buffett pays a lower tax rate of tax than his assistant, they are absolutely right, because Warren has mostly capital gains, so he is paying at 50% of the rate that his assistant is. That's very interesting. I didn't actually know that, which is food for thought, isn't it? And he carries on to say, of course, he can then ask the follow-up question. Would you rather the lower tax rate of Warren's billions or the ordinary tax rate of $100,000? What the Democrats have said as part of their platform at a minimum is that they want to eliminate the differential between capital gains and ordinary tax rates. There you go. So any stocks and shares and investments that Meghan and Harry are, getting money from and enjoying significant wealth from, I think that Harry has heavily invested his inheritance from his mother Diana. He will be liable to pay a higher tax under Joe Biden, which will make the US look seemingly less attractive for the ex-royal. So it carries on to say, what that means is for Warren Buffett is he's going to pay effectively twice as much tax as he did last year. However, he added that Mr. Biden will not be able to unilaterally raise this tax even if he becomes president. A change in the tax system would need to be ratified by both the House of Representatives and the Senate. This is a problem Barack Obama had as president. He only had 2 years in which Democrats had control of both the House and the Senate, and in the final 2 years, Republicans had control of both. So, a lot of people do complain and say that Obama didn't really achieve much for anybody. He didn't really make any effective changes. A lot of people of color, especially black people, say Obama didn't do anything for black people. It was a waste of time. He was the face of it. He was just a puppet, but he didn't actually make any real changes for their quality of life in the USA. The jury is out, but you can see with the complexities of moving into this role how difficult it is to actually get something moving. So yeah, it's possibly looking quite unlikely that Joe Biden will make a significant impact on Meghan and Harry's life, but who knows. So I'm going to carry on here. This meant he experienced significant pushback to many of his policies, resulting in a political stalemate at times where he was unable to pass key legislation. Mr. Leperance said, in a parliamentary system, if the House of Commons says right capital gains will not be equalised with income, assuming the House of Lords doesn't go bananas and assuming the Queen doesn't refuse to give royal assent, it will be law. If Joe Biden says, we want this situation, it has to pass two levels, the House of Representatives, the parliamentary equivalent of the House of Commons, and the Senate, the equivalent of the House of Lords. But the Senate is much more active in knocking down things traditionally than the House of Lords or the Senate in the Canadian Parliament. They've got Mitch McConnell. If Biden wins the presidency and Democrats remain in control of the House with Nancy Pelosi, but the Republicans with Mitch McConnell maintain the Senate, then there's not going to be a new tax policy, but it's an increasing possibility that the Democrats will sweep all three. What's more, there are a few exemptions in what people pay capital gain tax on. For example, there are slightly different rules for a person's primary residence in that they are allowed $500,000, which is £387,000 of tax-free capital gains on their home if they are a married couple, which Harry and Meghan obviously are, and $250,000, £193,000 if they are single. This means that if Meghan and Harry sold the home they bought for $14.7 million, which is £11.4 million, for $15.2 million, which is £11.8 million, they still would not pay any capital gains tax on it. Well, that's a nice perk for, the couple who have been dubbed the Leechers. So Mr. Leperance said, if Biden has his way, if Meghan as a US person and little Archie, who is a US citizen too, make some capital gains or income, it will be taxed at the same rate. Then we look at homes. The one thing people have that generally appreciates in value is their home. And most countries, because it's housing, you can't sleep under 100 shares of Apple. Most countries have special rules relating to capital gains taxation of a home. So for the US, depending on the state, they will say you bought this for $14.7 million. If when you sell it and you sell it at a loss, well, then there's no capital gains tax. But let's say you sell it for $500,000 more. The US says we still don't tax the first $500,000 of capital gains on your principal residence. So you can see it's quite complex here, guys. But I think that Meghan and Harry, this is just my personal opinion, will probably scave off these changes because this is all speculative. That's if Joe Biden gets any power, and even if he gets into power, he would have to pass through quite a few levels to get the go-ahead to raise the capital gains taxation in the United States. But there we have it. Meghan and Harry are still, coasting away, getting away with everything that they've done thus far. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled and I'll let you guys know the latest news. Bye, guys.